Hello and welcome to another edition of D&D Stories. I am your host Rob from the channel Performance Check, and this is the show where I regale you with tales from the hit role-playing game Dungeons & Dragons. Last time on D&D Stories, I introduced the campaign known as the Law of Mechanus. This is a tale that follows a newly renewed Droskor and Theodrex, having been locked away in the 9 Circles of Hell. Freed by Valdane, they return to Main Realm, wishing to fulfill the purposes that they had, chosen and had become part of and want to resolve. They want to essentially go on their personal quests to take down the phantoms of their past. Droskor and Theodrex head north to Nurendel, the home of the Undercroft, to search out Tauren, the Minotaur Lord, who has a grudge against the Dragon Warriors, the 2 liberators of Eldenor, Droskor and Theodrex. And Droskor has a grudge against the Minotaur because he's the leader of the Red Talon clan, a band of gnolls and orcs and minotaurs and other beastmen that are responsible for the death of Droskor's battalion, his brothers-in-arms. And so it is that our 2 heroes arrive in Nurendel, on the advice of Valdane. And upon an escarpment, they encounter a powerful tribe of orcs, their skin blood red. And it does not take long for the heroes to discern that these orcs are not of this world. For in the middle of the battle, there is a vast pillar of light that beams down from the sky, and an inevitable, a marauding harbinger of the clockwork nirvana of Mechanus has arrived to amend the anomaly. These orcs are of a different world, and it is the job of the inevitables to amend this, to correct this. After the orcs had been destroyed, Theodrex and Droskor had asked the Inevitable what its business was, but the Inevitable was able to scan our heroes, learning that they had been returned to this world with devil's magic, with a terrible pact. This is an imbalance to the Inevitable. This is an anomaly that must be corrected. This golden Terminator-like construct had advanced upon Droskor and Theodrex, overcharging itself. It seems like there's some kind of intense anti-dimensional power coursing through it, and it batters them. Theodrex fires arrows at the Inevitable, who is able to just snatch one arrow just out of the air, hit by the other 2 that just bounce off it, and just hurls it to the ground. Steps close to Theodrex and just with a backhand with a metallic fist sends Theodrex reeling to the ground. Droskor launches forth, Urgrosh in hand, and brings blow after blow down upon this metallic nightmare. It whirls about, its golden long sword singing in the air as it moves against the dwarf, the blade piercing him at the shoulder and at the side. Droskor is enamored by such a foe. Droskor loves the feel of battle, as does any good dwarven warrior. But he sees that right now, he's not facing a warrior, he's facing a surgeon. A ball of fire erupts from the Inevitable's shoulder as he is struck with a detonating shot from Theodrex, who has risen up and taken another shot at him. The Inevitable whirls around and just leaps high into the air, bringing its blade down at where Theodrex was a millisecond ago. The ranger rolls, his back now to the escarpment. The Inevitable just strikes out at Theodrex, once again with a surgeon's precision, slicing at his knee and at his shoulder, and narrowly missing the ranger's throat. He has to really lean back. And Droskor, as it's his turn, sees that this foe is beyond them. It is instantly apparent within the first round that this creature is here for the express purpose of destroying them. And indeed, other powerful beings that have been returned to the world in unnatural means. Droskor makes up his mind that he's going to do the unthinkable. He is going to do whatever it takes to stop this thing as it is attacking his friend, and charging with his battle cry of "Check out my dwarven might." Droskor slams his shoulder into the inevitable and drives it and himself off the edge of the cliff. Droskor is hurtling down with this inevitable in his grasp, and he brings an Urgosh strike down once, twice. His third misses, as the inevitable dimension doors away, and Droskor, Hammerstone of the Undercroft, is left alone to fall deep, deep down to the rocks. The inevitable emerges out of the dimension door behind Theodrex and plunges a blade deep into his back. Theodrex lets out a gasp as blood leaks from the side of his mouth. He steps away, pulling himself off the blade. His dark green cloak now mottled with blood. He looks in horror and surprise as the inevitable rises up against him and takes another strike. Matt, who plays Theodrex of Hemlon, does a quick estimation in his mind and decides he would rather face the falling damage than the inevitable damage. And so Theodrex of Hemlon is able to take a step backwards off the cliff and embraces gravity as he is dragged down towards the ground below. And Theodrex lands with a terrible impact. There is a crack as his shoulder breaks, and the ranger finds himself tumbling down an embankment that is actually drawing him closer towards the escarpment's cliff face. And he realizes that he's fallen into a tunnel that actually leads under the cliff. The cliff's here, he falls down here and rolls inside. Theodrex lands next to the rather shaken up and badly damaged Droskor, who is just pulling himself to his feet. The dwarf stands at a strange angle, clearly severely injured from the fall. And then Matt realised that he might have made a mistake, because he just took the falling damage, and then inevitably the inevitable uses Dimension Door again to step out of a portal at the bottom of the cliff and begins advancing into the cave that our two heroes have fallen into. Droskor gives a almighty yell and just charges the horrendous golden skeleton robed in a red cloak and bent on their destruction. The dwarf and the inevitable exchange blows. Once again, Droskor is thrown back and he cracks his head on the back of the cave wall. And then he notices something that is a blessing from Moradin himself. I ask Mike, who plays Droskor, to make a stone cunning roll, at which Droskor has many points, and he succeeds. And he is able to see that they have fallen into a defensive tunnel dug by the dwarves many years ago. Dug by the dwarves so, if needs be, the caves can be sealed off at any time at certain choke points. And it just so happens that Droskor, Hammerstone of the Undercroft, is sat at one of these choke points. Rising up with his Urgrosh, he brings it smashing hard into the side of the cave. There is a rupture as stone and earth and soil just pours down. Rock and boulder all crash down upon the inevitable. And then there is silence and darkness. Now, Droskor is a dwarf, so he is blessed with dark vision, so while Theodrex can't see, Droskor can, and he is able to quickly pull out some supplies, get some torches lit for Theodrex, and the two of them begin making a hasty retreat down into the tunnels, for they do not underestimate the foe that they had just faced, and do not want to waste any time seeing whether or not the creature can break through the barrier caused by the choke point tunnel collapse. And as Droskor is explaining, that these tunnels are essentially all linked with the Undercroft, the Dwarven Kingdom. And Theodrex agrees that it would probably be best for them to travel under the earth, for they had seen that many of these red orcs terrorize the land, and Droskor knows these tunnels like the back of his hand. He has served many years in Nurendel before he even dreamt of heading south. So Droskor is able to lead the two of them through the tunnels of darkness and rock until they find, far to the north, the Undercroft. Now I should explain, an entire third of the Undercroft, this mighty dwarven city of stone, is derelict. It is a no-man's land, thanks to many a war with the drow that often surge up from the depths of the Underdark. Droskor and Theodrex are wandering through old dwarven homes and temples and plazas. They see statues broken. They see skeletons of drow and dwarf alike. And then suddenly, they are surrounded. Droskor is able to tell that these individuals that surround him are of his kin. They are dwarves, and they are the fabled Deep Wardens. These are the dwarven elite. And it seems they have stumbled upon a patrol. Droskor announces himself, proclaiming his title that he is Droskor Hammerstone, heir to the Hammerstone line, and he demands that he be brought before the Dwarven Council. Our two heroes are led by Deep Warden procession to the gates of the Undercroft, vast stone walls essentially that can open, and as they are brought inside, they see the majesty of the Undercroft that is still lived in and used and filled with an entire race of people. The dwarves are your classic dwarves in this sense. There are mining guilds, and there are gem cutter guilds, and there are markets that sell hot roasted goats and hot roasted goats. That just reminds me, because there was this whole in-joke about hot roasted goats, because it just sounds strange. But they sell hot roasted goats, and they are a bustling society that, for all intents and purposes, live in a world of their own. The dwarves are very stereotypical in this setting, in the sense that if they're doing okay, they're happy. They live very isolated lives away from the rest of the world. Anyway, they're led through this dazzling city where the deeper you go, the more important places you find. First of all, they're just in the poorer areas, but the deeper they go, they start finding the really impressive guilds and the really expensive shops and things like that. And eventually they reach the Stone Ark. The Stone Ark is the place where the Council of the Dwarves preside. And as Theodrex and Droskor are led before them, they see the council is already in session. Word had been sent ahead that the heir of the Hammerstone line has returned, and it becomes clear to Theodrex what Droskor's position actually is in this place. Droskor had never been forthcoming with any information about his family or his heritage, and now Theodrex learns that the Hammerstone line is a prominent one in the Undercroft, a very prominent one. At the head of the Dwarven Council is a silver-haired dwarf known as Aegric Silverpick. And the Silverpick are the long-sworn rivals of the House of Hammerstone. Aegric Silverpick now resides at the head of the council and looks upon Droskor with contempt and disgust, and he says in a low voice, "Droskor Hammerstone, we had believed you dead. You had been gone for so long, forsaken our ways, and defied our orders, and we had considered you long gone from this earth." Droskor is just staring at him.
Your father! Well, your father Brogar would not have this, of course, and he set out to Lockthorn, for there was rumour that you had been slain by a great beast, a hydra, no less. And your father, well, he never returned. And so his position at the council has fallen to me, as your grandfather Krantz still remains in the Nether Sleep.
The Nether Sleep is a state that the dwarves can enter in this setting that we've not really encountered yet, but the older dwarfs, to prolong their lifespan, go into sort of like a long sleep, kind of like Odin and the Everfrost, you know, like he just goes to sleep for a bit. That's what the older dwarfs can do. They have this sort of technique. While this is explained, Theodrex is watching Droskor closely and notes that the dwarven warrior definitely seems affected by this news. My father is missing, he says under his breath.
Aegric says, Well, yes. He has been gone many, many months now. Almost a year.
Droskor just stares at Aegric. Hammerstones and silverpicks do not get on, and this is not helping things. But despite this, Droskor takes a moment and then says, Questions about my father can wait. We bring grim news. The land of Nurendel is under siege, and yet none of our people seem to be helping.
Why, that is correct, Droskor. How keenly you observe our current situation. We have no intention of helping the realm at large with this threat. Where were they? And where are they when we are set upon by drow and flayers and other portents of evil that stalk us upon a daily basis? We hold back the grim tide of the Underdark. And for that, we serve this realm. The surface is for surface folk to be concerned with. That is our way.
Droskor looks around at the council, and they all seem to be agreeing. Well, says Droskor, I know better than to argue with stubborn old dotes who have grown dusty within their chairs of power. There is a roar sort of outcry from all the dwarves as they stand. I am Droskor Hammerstone, and in my father's absence, I think you will find that makes me acting lord of my line, and as such, I will invoke upon my right to marshal the Hammerstone Deep Wardens, those that we attribute to the Grand Dwarven Army.
And what, pray, would you do with the Hammerstone Deep Wardens? Fight a whole army? We rely on our tunnels and on our defences to hold back encroaching enemies. How would you and a handful of dwarves contest against the might of a full alien orc army?
Droskor just smiles and says, We will not contest with the whole army. We will lead a strike force, and he nods to Theodrex, and we shall bring the fight to Tauron directly. If he dies, the Talon clan will collapse without strong leadership. Bit of an assumption, says Theodrex in an undertoned voice, trying to make sure that the dwarves don't hear. It's the best I've got, says Droskor back.
Well, we cannot stop you from doing this, for as you say, Aegric boasts and gloats, as you say, you may only bring with you the Hammerstone Deep Wardens attributed to your house, and I'm sorry to say there are not many. Your house has suffered significantly since you were last here, Droskor. Droskor sort of is just holding back every ounce of anger. He wants to ensure that he can bring the fight to Tauron, and starting a fight with the council isn't going to help him do that. So instead he shrugs and says, well, you can remain hiding down here in your cradles of dust, afraid of the light above. But I am going to bring the fight to our enemies who have sworn to destroy us here. And he looks around at the whole council. When I am successful, I shall be bringing this up with each of you individually, and I will be asking my grandfather when he awakens how he can sleep and let these inactive, inert fools from making any decision on the behalf of our people. And with that, he sweeps away. And Theodrex is seen a new side of Droskor. Droskor, very much a mercenary-minded kind of dwarf, but when it comes to the matter of his family and where he's from, clearly he is protective. But something weighs on Droskor's mind. And later, as he and Theodrex are preparing in Droskor's old quarters from long ago, he admits this and says, "I've been away too long. I have much to make up for." So after this dramatic council session is adjourned, Droskor and Theodrex go about the Undercroft to learn as much as they can about the invading force outside, and if they can get any mark on where Tauren's potential position might be. They learn that the Minotaur Lord is encamped between the Undercroft and Thundertop, the great mountain forge. Theodrex and Droskor begin researching how best to get there, and they decide once again that rather than risk travelling across the surface where there are hordes of roving, terrifying red orcs, they should delve into the tunnels once more. Droskor speaks to learned dwarves and scholarly map makers, and they determine that the best route to get to where they need to go is through a formidable and fabled pathway, and it is known as the Ghostlight Pass. Theodrex rolls his eyes at the name. Are you kidding me? The Ghostlight Pass. There isn't any better way to get to where we're going. Nope, says Droskor. Okay. Theodrex is getting a little bit antsy. While obviously this is Dungeons and Dragons, and he's been in many dungeons and subterranean places before, spending large amounts of time underground is not something that he enjoys particularly. He's a ranger, he likes the open air. What is this Ghostlight Pass? Says Theodrex. Well, says Droskor, pleased that he'd asked. It is, or it was, a hallowed place where we would lay our ancestors to rest. Our great ancestors would be entombed with great gifts from their life that will help them to Moradin's feasting hall when they leave this world. Right, says Theodrex, doesn't sound so bad. That's the thing, says Droskor. Over the years, the Drow have struck many times in an attempt to take these wonderful possessions of our long-dead ancestors for their own. Some of these are powerful magical items. And you leave them unguarded, says Theodrex all of a sudden. You just dump a whole bunch of magical items down there and expect no evil force to rise up and try and claim them for their own. The doors and stone seal the dead away, says Droskor. And there are many ancient enchantments placed upon those doors to ensure that no one can get in. We're just going to be using the pass to there and then go beyond that point to resurface and take the fight to Tauren. Fine, says Theodrex. Fine. But this doesn't seem like a good idea. We'll be with 20 deep wardens, said Droskor. We'll have a better chance than anything than we can plan moving across the surface. Theodrex packs extra drink. He decides he's going to need it. And so it was that Droskor, Theodrex, and a motley crew of 20 Hammerstone Deep Wardens descend into the darkness, descend on their way to the Ghostlight Pass. They see many winding tunnels and deep chasms that drop into infinite darkness. They see stalagmites and stalactites, and they see strange underground running rivers of different colours,
glittering rocks and crystals that shine in Theodrex's torchlight. And then eventually, Droskor looks around a corner and sees a long hallway wrought into the stone with strange, ancient dwarven carvings upon the walls. They see a row of stone doors wrought with different runes that glitter once again under the torchlight. As they walk through this ghost-light pass, they see the lights that give the pass its name, hovering in the air, incandescent, glittering. A light in the darkness for the dwarven ancestors to help find their way home to Moradin. As they pass a particular door, Droskor stops. He sees the hammerstone sigil wrought into this door. Placing a meaty hand upon the rock, and with a stone-cutting roll, Droskor is able to learn that he can open this door if he says the right words. Droskor considers for a moment, closing his eyes, and then, in the dwarven tongue, he speaks. Kethru Kana Kazad. There is a rumbling as this great stone door shifts open. Theodrex stares in wonder that Droskor was able to open this so quickly, and he says, "What did you say?" "It is a dwarven saying," says Droskor, "of my house, our words. It roughly translates to, 'Check out my dwarven might.'" Theodrex smiles. So that's where that came from. Inside they see a vast tomb, a mausoleum almost, and there are a number of stone effigies that depict the different dwarven lords of the Hammerstone line. Droskor makes his way inside, looking around. Mike, the player of Droskor, decides that, these are Droskor's ancestors, and really, if anyone could take anything from this place, it should be him. Droskor is busy sort of looking around this place when Theodrex says, "Aren't these items left to, help them in the afterlife? Isn't it sort of sacred? Sacrosanct? Are you desecrating your own family tomb, Droskor?" Theodrex basically asks. "Just borrowing," says Droskor. "The fate of our entire people is dependent on what happens in the next few days. I want to make sure that we have a fighting chance. And the best way for me to do that is to fight better. There must be something in here to help me." "What about that?" says Theodrex, pointing to a corner. There, laid out upon a stone work surface almost, is an innate set of armor. Droskor approaches it hungrily and sees that it is deep warden armor. Now, there is a particular type of armor that this actually was. I can't remember which book it was in, but essentially it's a form of dwarven armor that when they don't move during their turn, the armor locks into place, making them almost immovable, giving them a huge boost to armor class. It essentially meant that dwarven warriors could just stand in a doorway and even beyond death wouldn't move. They would just lock into position and stay there. Droskor takes this ornate armor, and he can see with pride that the Hammerstone sigil is carved into the breastplate. He takes his long cloak and throws it over his shoulders once he tries this new armor on. It is perfectly made. Every joint flexes and moves perfectly, and then, when he wants to, locks into place. Droskor is very happy with this. They're about to leave when Droskor taps Theodrex on the shoulder and says, "There's something I want to show you." They walk to the other side of this crypt, and in the hand of one of these stone dwarves, there sits a bow. It is metallic in nature, and it has a cog on both ends of the bow where the drawstring meets the actual bow itself. These cogs essentially enable a more powerful draw. It's almost like a draw assist function on the bow. And with it comes a quiver. This is known as Zenith, says Droskor. This is a bow that was used way back in the history of my people when we fought against the Drow. Wow, says Theodrex. You mean you're giving this to me? I can't possibly accept. You have fought by my side for a long time now, says Droskor. You are like a brother to me. That makes you family, and that makes you entitled to wield this. Zenith. Draw it, go on. Theodrex takes the bow and marvels at the craftsmanship that would have been required to make such a weapon. And as he takes an arrow and draws it, there is a beam of light that erupts from the two cogs. This beam of light travels down the drawstring, illuminating almost the entire room. The arrow in his hand now gleams a radiant white. He lets loose the shaft, and it flies across the room, leaving behind a trail of light. It arcs like the sun's zenith, says Droskor, a powerful weapon against the Drow who hate such things. Theodrex doesn't know what to say, so he just gives a curt nod in gratitude, overwhelmed by this. They're able to get some more little things that they find in here. They find two immovable rods, basically devices that are like handholds that you can hold, press a button, and then they hang there in the air. It's a metallic rod that can just hang there and it's impossible to move. They have two of those. They have a 10-foot pole. They find some old torches, some health potions, and the like. And once they have all of this cool kit, they then decide to press on with their deep wardens deeper into the darkness. They move further and further and deeper through this intricate network of tunnels, winding in the darkness, once again avoiding those bottomless caverns and strange underground rivers that torrent past them. Following one of these rivers, they come to a vast underground lake. Droskor, with his dark vision, can just see an island that sits in the middle of this lake. An island that then has a rock bridge over to a new network of tunnels, which is their way out. Looking around, they're able to find a number of small, rotted boats that would have been used to cross this lake in times gone by. Droskor looks to his deep wardens and barks a command to ensure that those boats are going to be able to carry them across, whilst he and Theodrex plan the next move and keep a lookout. As the two of them are conferring, however, I ask for a spot check. They see something move in the corner of this cave. And then something darts at them, a crossbow bolt. It just grazes Theodrex's shoulder, who instantly draws his new bow and fires back with Zenith. The light arrow casts a beaming vision across the local area. And as the arrow finds its mark, sinking into the flesh of their attacker, it illuminates the situation. They see a number of drow positioned on one side of the lake. They are all armed with crossbows and bows and begin opening fire. There are a lot of them, and the challenge isn't so much to defeat the drow rather than it is to cross the lake without succumbing to their torrent of arrow and crossbow bolt fire. The dwarves load themselves quickly into the boats, holding up shields to defend against the arrows raining down upon them. One deep warden is struck in the throat and falls deep into the water. TheWriter stands on the prow of one of these boats and is firing back, covering fire. Light arrows sailing over the dark water and plunging into the drow, who are barking terrifying orders with their strange drow dialect. TheWriter looks in horror as another crossbow bolt sinks into the flesh of another deep warden, who then once again falls out of the boat and sinks beneath the dark water. He realises that they're going to need to pack a bit more of a punch, and considers what might happen using his innate archer abilities with this newfound bow. He fires a detonating shot with one of his arrows, his explosive arrows, and it flies, hitting the leader of these drow directly in the chest. What follows is not only an explosion, but a wave of radiant light that fills the cave. The drow are blinded by the light of the sun, and it provides the necessary time for the rest of them to escape. Overall, they lose five of the deep wardens that they set out with, thanks to just this random drow ambush. That's all it was. It was just a random encounter, and they lost 5. But they were able to demonstrate the power of Zenith, and it's particularly handy against the drow, as Droskor had mentioned. Reaching the island, they discover they are just outside of the drow's range, and they can still hear them making terrifying battle cries in the darkness as they double time it up this island, onto the rock bridge, and through the tunnels. Winding tunnels that now begin to arc upwards, winding up through earth and soil and rock, until eventually they can see the night sky. Emerging out into the open, TheWriter takes in a deep breath. They are upon a verge looking out across Nurendel, and they can see they are in the shadow of a vast mountain, a single lonely mountain that arcs high into the air. Rolling thunder clouds circle it, lightning arcing and striking the very pinnacle of this awe-inspiring piece of nature, this mountain thunder top, looking down upon all. And then they see a camp, a vast camp surrounded by stockades built up by innumerable red orcs. They see amongst their number also gnolls that look particularly haggard and diseased, chattering and cackling to themselves. They see a number of minotaurs, and then in the distance they see the Minotaur Lord, Torum. TheWriter and Droskor sort of crouch down and begin discussing what they're going to do. There's still a lot of them, but they reckon if they can strike quickly, they can use fear and theatricality, Batman style, to break up the rest of the clan if they are able to make Toron fall. "Why is he just waiting here?" says TheWriter. "Why is he just sat here? Surely he would be marshalling the rest of his forces towards the Undercroft?" "They are here because I advise them to be," a soft voice echoes from behind them. Whirling about, Droskor, TheWriter, and the Deep Wardens are able to perceive a figure standing further up the verge, above the cave entrance they've just left. The figure is enshrouded in a long cloak. He has a bow on his back and a sword at his side. "Tell me," the voice continues, "what brings a ranger from Hemlon so far from home?" Moving closer, TheWriter's eyes widen. The individual standing in front of him bears the garb of a ranger of Hemlon. Speechless, he watches as the figure approaches. I told them to position themselves here, for this is indeed the fastest way and the most secure way to get to the Undercroft. We knew you'd come, and we decided to wait. I am Kaisel, Theodrex. Do you remember me? I look very different. The figure is drawn very close, and while looking like an ordinary man, there is a particular gleam behind this ranger's eyes. Theodrex's eyes widen even further. Throughout all of the campaigns that we have been exploring here on D&D Stories, focusing on Theodrex and Droskor, there has always been hinted the event that caused Theodrex to leave Hemlon in the first place. The fact that he awoke surrounded by his dead ranger brethren and had no memory of what had occurred. Kaisel had been one of those rangers, slain. Theodrex had woken to see his lifeless eyes pierced by arrows and stabbed with horrendous carved blades. Theodrex mouths wordlessly, trying to say something, but Kaisel stops him. It was you, Theodrex. It was you that was responsible for my death. How are you here? Says Theodrex. Oh, you're one to talk, says Kaisel. I have been informed by powers that know of such things, know that returning from the ether is not a new experience for you. You say you've always wondered, you say you've never known what happened that night when you awoke to find all of us dead. But really, deep down, in your heart you understand that it is your fault. I see your hands are shaking, Theodrex. Are you yearning for another drink? Kaisel reaches into his robe and throws a flask at Theodrex, who catches it with a shaking hand. Indeed, it has been a while since Theodrex has had a drink. Indeed, he still suffers with his alcoholism. You drank deeply that night, Theodrex. So deeply that you slept on your watch. So deeply you didn't hear the brigands and assassins slitting our throats one by one. They left you so you could awake and see their handiwork. Theodrex is just open mouth in disbelief, shaking. It can't be that. It was some spell. It was something else. No, it was you. It was you and your inability to control your temptations and your vices. You caused our death, and for that you will pay. But how are you here? Says Theodrex, finally managing to start prompting some questions from this shadowy stranger, almost. The Deep Wardens are sort of glaring at this figure, sort of like hefting their Urgroshes ready. Droskor is just standing right next to Theodrex, waiting for the word. But Theodrex doesn't give it. How are you here? Why, in many other worlds, the same thing happens. The same thing always happens. Theodrex fucks up and gets other people killed. And I'm here to make sure that that can't happen ever again. I'm here from another world, like these red orcs, like this invading force. It is a arrangement that benefits all. They get to destroy the heroes of the Battle of Valdenor, those that vanquished the Red Talon clan, and I get to get even with the ranger that killed me with incompetence. And that is where we're going to leave this particular edition of D&D Stories. I hope you enjoyed it. Do feel free to return for the climactic and concluding part of not only this story arc, but of this entire season of D&D Stories. I'm your host, Rob, from the channel Performance Check, and as ever, keep gaming.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out the D&D Stories Facebook, Patreon, and t-shirts on Redbubble. Keep gaming!